hey, you might find the perfect person and you're probably gonna screw it up. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director living in Taiwan, and today I'm going to be talking about the film Asako I II, directed by Hamaguchi Ryūsuke. Hamaguchi Ryūsuke is the director of a film that I love called Drive My Car. So when this film was recommended to me by a viewer, I of course jumped at the chance to check it out. Asako I II is about a woman named Asako who falls in love with a free-spirited guy named Baku. Baku is very romantic, but he's also very flaky. So one day he disappears out of nowhere. Later on, when Asako moves to Tokyo, she meets a man named Ryohei, who looks exactly like Baku, but he isn't the same man. His personality is much more stable, so she eventually starts a relationship with Ryohei. I find this concept and this story to be an interesting commentary on relationships and about how who we love is so often based on chance. You know, in the beginning of the film, Asako runs into the right person at the right time, somebody who makes her feel certain things, and she's just drawn to him. Later on, she falls in love with Ryohei, and the reason for their encounter is, in a way, based on the fact that he looks like somebody she knew from her past. In a way, it's a very cynical look at love. Love is just this specific quality, and that's how we start these relationships with these people. It's not based on anything real. It's not concrete. It's not based on reality. It's all about our momentary feelings and chance. Fate, I don't think, has any place in the worldview of this film. Something I really like about the way that they kind of use this concept is that it takes this surreal idea, the idea of two men who look exactly the same, and it grounds it in this very realistic romance film. The world that we're in is very straightforward. It's not a fantasy, yet there is this hint of this strange thing going on. As you watch it, you kind of have to wonder, is Baku a real guy? Or is Ryohei actually Baku and his memory got wiped? But you have these ideas, and the film doesn't explain it, but as it goes on, you just realize, oh no, this is just a reality where there's two people that look really similar. You know, it's not explained explicitly what is going on. It's just a strange detail that is left to the audience to interpret. There's no aha moment where it's like, oh, Ryohei actually is Baku, or it's just a metaphor, or it's a dream, or she's imagining that these people look the same and they actually don't. And there's none of that. And the thing that I really like about it is I think that the Baku-Ryohei characterizations are meant to be both a straightforward story plot point, but also a metaphor. They are representations of Asako's feelings on love as she goes through life, and a representation of the fact that we as people, in some way, as we go through our romantic life, we always end up loving the same kind of person. In some ways, the people that we love are the same person, but in other ways, the people that we love are very different from each other. I think one of the best things that Hamaguchi does as a director in this film is he plays with perspective. So the film is shot very close to the main character that it is following. In the first section of the film, before the title, our perspective is with Asako, and we follow her and what she wants and what she feels, and we're with her. We're with her perspective. Everything is around her. The shots are centered around her. It's like if you're writing a novel, it's first-person narrative from Asako's perspective. After the title, it actually then shifts quite strangely, in a way, to Ryohei. This film is called Asako I II, but now, for the majority, actually the vast majority of this movie, we are in Ryohei's world. We're looking at Ryohei's perspective from Asako coming to him. We see him looking at her from far away. The camera stays with him. It's not with her. It's with his first-person perspective. All the scenes revolve around him. And this changes at the end of the film. So, spoiler, when Baku returns, Asako leaves Ryohei again, and the camera follows her, putting us back into her perspective, very jarringly. Hamaguchi does a very subtle thing with the camera with these sections, these three parts of the film. I would like to break the film down into three parts. In the first and third parts, the camera is a little bit subtle, but it's more fluid. In the middle section, when we're with Ryohei, the camera is very stable, the shots are very symmetrical. I really like this idea of when we're following Asako, the world is more romantic and fluid. When we're following Ryohei, the world is stable and has order and meaning. When we go back to Asako, and everything gets a little bit more jarring again. And he doesn't do it in a way that's super overt. It's just enough to give you this mood. And I think that's a theme with Hamaguchi as a director, is that his directorial choices are very effective, but they're very subtle. He's not overdoing it. He's not trying to beat you over the head with the fact that he's a good director. He's trying to serve the story in a non-evasive way. He does it with the acting, which I'll talk about later. The plot of this film on paper is that of a very traditional romance, but in many ways it's an anti-romance film. It breaks down the idea that who you love is based on anything concrete. Love is about chance, and then even when you do meet the perfect person, like Asako does, she meets Ryūsuke, but she ruins it because of this irrational feeling that she has, this memory that love is supposed to be this passionate thing. So when Baku comes back, she can't resist going back to that passion. And she soon realizes that, this isn't the right thing. This isn't what I want. I want my stability back. And for Ryūsuke, who is very well adjusted and trusting throughout the whole film almost, his trust is ruined by Asako. Our past experiences affect our ability to engage with our partners honestly. It's all based on how we were treated in the past. So for Asako, her attachment to passion from the past affects her ability to let that go and really be with her partner who's perfect. And for Ryūsuke going forward, he's not going to be able to trust people anymore because of this past wrong that someone did to him, and it's probably going to make him a bad romantic partner in the future. And so all of our flaws in our romantic engagements are from these past things. They don't necessarily even have to do with the person that we're engaging with, because I think it's so hard for humans to wipe their history away from them. Everything, they try to relate everything to their experiences, when sometimes you need to just engage with a person on the terms of here and now, but that's so hard to do. And I love this movie, especially because it's a film from Asia, and Asia in particular, I think, has a very unrealistic and idealized view of romances. You can watch another review on this channel, Man in Love, to kind of see that. A lot of these romances coming out of Asia are so over the top idealized, and I love that this movie just kind of throws cold water on any of this kind of idealized look at love. It's very practical, it's a very realistic look at it, and say like, hey, you might find the perfect person and you're probably gonna screw it up. I think something that's interesting about this film, and the reason that I think it's so important that the director understates all of his directorial choices, is that I think a movie like this, with kind of talks about romance in a critical way, has the danger of delving into gender politics a little bit, which is a very touchy subject. You know, it's like, oh, women are bad, or men are bad, or somebody did this wrong. You know, this film, I don't think, goes into that territory too deeply in a way that is too overly critical of a sex. I think it's really just more about relationships in general and human nature. And again, I think that goes back to the understated choices that the director makes. You know, that this film is presented in a very straightforward, almost clinical way. And that brings me back to the acting, which I loved. I've seen criticisms of the acting in other reviews, and people kind of saying like, oh, the actress has this like blank stare throughout the film, and it's like almost, I saw some criticisms that were calling it sexist because of that, but I don't feel that way at all. I think the best evidence that this is like a very intentional thing that the director is doing is in the film itself, when the characters are discussing the best way to act in a Chekhov play. You know, they talk about how you don't want to show off, you want to try to be as minimal as possible, and what you're trying to do is be an avatar for the emotion of the audience. So you want the audience to be able to read you playing out these situations and then show subtle variations in emotion, and that's like a trigger for the audience to feel something very, very strongly. You don't want to be showing off and showing, oh, what a good actress or actor I am. I can show you all these feelings and these emotions. The acting choices of him as a director are very brilliant in that regard. And it's something that you can see is a characteristic of him as a director. If you watch Drive My Car, that movie also features heavily discussions about Chekhov and acting and not being too over the top and keeping things subtle. And that movie also has some of the greatest performances I've seen in film. It's a good example of how to do understated acting correctly. I think understated acting can be done poorly, but in his films, he does it very, very well. So that is my review of Asako I and II. I would definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend it if you're a fan of romance films. And if you like those cheesy Asian romance films in particular, this is kind of the anti-cheesy Asian romance film. So you should check it out and see if it broadens your perspective a little bit. Remember to like, share, subscribe as you do, and tell your friends, and let me know in the comments if you have any movie you want me to review. See you next time.